Okay. I do want to just give a shout out. I know we'll talk about this during the show, but if you don't know, Vinny has a great podcast called Breakfast with Vinny, and it's really fantastic. And I encourage everybody, if you don't know about this, to subscribe to it. It's really great. It's Vinny covers all sorts of different topics and subjects on his podcasts, and they're all great. And they're all, like 15, 20 minutes. You can just listen to it while you're driving to work or having your breakfast, which is what I do. All right. So rather than push my luck with the internet connection and the power and all that, I'm not going to take up any more time. And with that, I'm going to welcome my very special guest, the most handsome man I know. The most handsome man I know. The most handsome man I know. Vinny.
Oh, hi, John. No, wait a second. Are you looking in the mirror? I'm just curious. Are you looking in the mirror handsome?
Well, I'll tell you what. If I'm looking in the mirror, I'm seeing a really, really handsome guy.
Easy now. People are going to start talking. They're going to start talking. They probably already are.
I think they are. I think that it's so good to see you. You got to hit me to whatever you're using to get the music and the sound effects, because the other day you were playing some.
Really yes, fun. No, absolutely. Well, good to see you, John.
Good to see you too, Vinny.
Well, there's various ways to do this, but I use this Rode podcaster, which is an amazing device. I love it.
Okay. Really,
so yeah. I mean, and I just, I mean, it's a funny thing, It's a funny thing because I love. I mean, and I will talk about products here because I believe in what I use. So yeah, absolutely, man. I don't do that sort of thing, but
yeah.
Hey, so how the hell are you?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. I got my fingers crossed. We're gonna have, so far so good internet connection and all that stuff. So yeah,
absolutely. I know you guys are having a blizzard back there, right?
Yeah, we're getting pounded pretty well. It's going to be maybe 2 feet when it's all said and done.
Oh boy, I've got a lot of memories of shoveling snow and believe me, from living back there. I mean, one time. I mean, do you want to start, or you want me to just carry on with this stupid little story here?
No, we're starting.
We're starting. So once I was actually playing a gig. And it was in New Hampshire, if I remember correctly. So I drove up there, and I had a little Volkswagen Beetle that I used to put all my drums in. So I'm playing this gig, and at the end of the night, I mean, it was snowing, so I came out of the place, and all I could see was the top, maybe about 2 inches of the top of the roof, and I just looked at it, and I just thought, okay, so. It's like 2 a.m, I got to start shoveling snow just to get my drums in the car.
Yeah. And oh my God.
Those were the days, my friend. So yeah. And then the car surprisingly just started right up. And
oh, that's great.
It was a great little car for the most part, but I could go on and on with those stories. I mean, so I definitely don't miss shoveling snow, or the wind chill factor, but there's a lot of other stuff I kind of miss,
Isn't it funny? When we were talking about this the other day, I was thinking how, like, when we were younger, you wouldn't hesitate to go play a gig, knowing there was a forecast for it to snow. You just go play your gig, and you came out at the end of the night, your car was under, buried under snow, and you just dug it out and drove home. It's funny how it's the stuff we did.
Yeah, it's amazing because, like, when you're young and you have all these other factors that go along with that, the impetuousness or the sort of just, feeling invulnerable and just having a lot of energy, and you bounce back quick, and and you have less time of lived experience on your timeline, so things are new and fresh and exciting, and you're at a point in your life where you're like, okay, well, I want to go somewhere with this. And so this is important to me. And because I love this, and because I have a vision of where I'm going and where I'm striving to go, it's all fun. And then your friends are into the same thing. And so, you want to be with your friends, and who cares
Yeah.
if it snows, and,
Yeah.
we'll just make snow angels. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
great, no problem, and exactly. But then again, there's the flip side of, like I was saying, what happened to me is, like, I remember once I was driving back, because I lived in Boston for a while, and then I moved to the Cape. So
Right.
I was living down on the Cape, and it's a haul from Boston to the Cape. And so
Yeah.
was driving back from Boston to the Cape, and more than once this happened. And once, though, it was so bad that the car just died. And I've just got my gig clothes out of the car and threw them over my back and just started walking. And I think it might have been on Route 6, or maybe it was, I'm not sure if I went over the Sagamore Bridge at that point. I think I was on the Cape at that point.
Yeah.
Pitch black, dark, not a peep, middle of the winter,
Oh.
freezing,
Oh.
2:30 in the morning. I don't know, 3 in the morning. It was cold, and I just started walking. I probably had at least 10 miles, 15 miles to walk, but I just walked, and I thought, well, eventually there will be a car, and if I just keep walking, maybe I'll stay warm and something will happen, or who knows what I was thinking, but all of the above. And eventually, actually, a car came by, but before that happened, there was about 15 minutes of like pure darkness, and kind of like eerie sounding little sounds coming from the side of the road, so I thought, what's going to happen now? And there I am. And then a car came by, and I just stuck my thumb out, and the guy stopped.
Yeah.
I went,
Yeah.
oh, great. Back in those days, people would do that stuff because you didn't have to worry about,
Stuff. Yeah. Exactly.
things like you do now, like, no,
Yeah.
who in their right mind would do that, right? And so consequently, a part of the human spirit gets dampened, and there's just, everybody's suspicious of everything about everybody. But the guy picked me up, and so there was this diner that was open 24 hours that I ended up going to because I knew the guy, and it was close to my house. Went in there, warmed up, and I think maybe he gave me a bowl of soup or something, and then I got a ride home, And then my car was like 10, 15 miles back on the road, and I had, get it towed or whatever. And, another time, I had to I actually fashioned a coat hanger because the paddle broke, and I figured out that if I attached it to the carburetor through the window and fashioned a couple of coat hangers, I could pull on the coat hanger, which would affect the carburetor, that would cause the car to accelerate. So now, instead of pressing on the gas pedal, I'm tugging on the coat hangers with one hand whilst shifting gears in the clutch and trying to steer with my elbow. Stuff like that. And another time my car broke down in the snow, and I just tried to snuggle up and sleep, and I couldn't because it was too cold.
Oh.
And, this is what happens when you're a starving student and you're playing these gigs. I mean, it's funny, right? For like
It is
top 40 gigs just to make a living, and you just do whatever, and you're not thinking about, oh, I've got a really crappy car and it's not really reliable, but I can't afford much else,
Yeah.
So I borrowed my cousin's car once, to do another gig. She had this big station wagon, and I was driving back, and all of a sudden I saw this thing dart out in front of me, and I tried slamming on the brakes, and just as it was getting to like my side of the car towards the edge of it, I heard this little thump, and I freaked out, and it looked like a deer. And so I freaked out really badly because I thought that I had, really hurt this deer, and, I was really upset about it because I love animals, and, I don't hunt, I don't do any of that stuff. So, but that's just me. Okay. So So I stopped the car and looked around, and I didn't see anything, but yeah, and I told my cousin about it, and I had a little. I said, "Oh, your car's okay. Your car's okay." But I just remember all these kind of follies, like
Yeah. Yeah.
that we would go
Yeah.
through with the snow and the inclement weather.
The things I was going to say, you had me thinking about this from when we talked the other day about just, yeah, the weather. And like my band originally had a gig scheduled for tonight. We canceled it a while ago, but
Yeah.
I was just joking with my bandmates saying, what time is load in tonight? We're going to have 2 feet of snow by 6 o'clock tonight. And
Tonight, you're actually going to do this?
no, we're not going to do the gig. No, we're,
okay.
yeah, no, but but years ago we probably would have, you know what I mean?
Right.
We would have gotten our cars and gone, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, of course, and then there's less venues, and now with this whole thing that's been going on, people aren't, if they show up, who knows,
Right.
and right, and so the age of the audience, they might be going, I'm going to stay home,
Right. Well, that's it. Exactly. That's a big part of it for us. Yeah.
Well,
So Vinny, when you were you living here during the blizzard? Not to talk about blizzards all day, but were you here for that big blizzard in '78?
That's exactly when I left.
Oh, good for you.
I was here for I was in there for the infamous blizzard of 1978.
Yeah,
so,
February. Yeah.
Exactly. And I remember it well. And one of my roommates at the time, I was living in Alston, and there was a bunch of us in this house, like 8 of us in a 6-bedroom house. It was like Animal House, right? And it was funny. So unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago. He was a great guy, a bass player. And anyway, before he passed away, we were reminiscing about that very thing. I went and visited him in the hospital. We were talking. Sorry, I'm chewing on a cough drop. It just helps when you talk a lot, right? So he and I were talking, and he said, "You remember that blizzard?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Remember how we had to climb out of the second-story bedroom window down the snowbank, and that the city was giving out these vouchers to go to the co-op. If you could get there, they would give you food." I was like, "Oh yeah." So we had to slide down, go to the co-op, get the bags of food, and then somehow climb back up into the house because we were snowed in, and it was that bad. I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember, you remember the police on snowmobiles? I remember that because you couldn't drive anywhere. It was like 4 days of being locked in completely.
Right.
Couldn't go anywhere.
I remember that.
Yeah. So basically I just said, okay, this is it. I'm done. Because at that point I was toying with going back and forth of where am I going to go to sort of continue this adventure? Am I going to go to New York, or am I going to go to LA? So I was talking to my classmates. Some went to New York, some went to LA, and then that happened, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to LA. So I did it. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. But I I had very little money when I did it. So speaking of, just taking chances, I did exactly that. I had $80, a suitcase, and my drums in those fiber drum cases, which when they get wet, they kind of warp,
Yes.
That's what I had, hardware case, and it was clever. And so I took a Greyhound bus from Boston to Los Angeles to Hollywood. And we stopped in Chicago, and I had to, and I was like trying to sleep. And I remember I woke up, and there was this limited amount of time where it was like, oh, I have to change buses. So now I had to take all my stuff off, my drums. And in Chicago, it was just as cold and, snowing, and trying to like get all my drums from one bay to another bay, in the snow, and my suitcase, and hop back on the bus. And here, you're in these chairs, basically just trying to sleep and just get there, and then I remember, sort of going across the country, and the landscape was changing, and all of a sudden I'm in the wild, wild west now. Hey, and I just thought, wow, this is a trip. And and I ended up in Hollywood, and a friend of mine picked me up and said, you know, in a cab. And I had met him when I was at the record plant Sausalito doing this record. So, you know, he was teching for a band called Captain Beyond. So I met him, and we befriended him, you know, and we became good friends and stuff. And then so he picked me up, right? And in a taxi. So we go to his little apartment. He had a studio apartment in the foothills close to the Hollywood Bowl. So he's picking me up with my drums and stuff. And he's got a hot plate, and there's just like a little mattress on the floor for me, right? That's it.
Oh man.
You know, and there was a bathroom, you know, I mean, it was just a little place, but we set the drums up, you know.
Of course. In his studio apartment. Yeah.
We had drums and we played them when we felt like it. And guess what happened next? We got evicted.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh man, these are things I did not know.
Huh? Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, you know, got evicted. So
that was
we should have our own show. Everybody has a show now. Hey, you know what? We're all talk show hosts now. Hey, what do you think about me? I don't know. Do you like me? I like me. I like you better than me. Who's more popular, you or me?
Oh, you're way more popular than me. Trust me.
How's this for my sort of, you know,
game show host?
Media face.
Media face.
or the serious kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
He means business when he reports the news. He means business when he reads the headlines on his own podcast and just parrots them.
The tagline is "No BS," the No BS news.
I've been looking, you know, towards you this whole time, and now I'm looking at the screen and I'm seeing all these drums behind you, and I envy us. So,
well, I got that little
drums.
Thanks, buddy. I get that star set I showed you the other day right there, but I wanted to set the Gretsch up for you, the white Gretsch.
Oh, and now for you're talking.
In your honor.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, buddy. But
those are beautiful.
So wow. Thank you. Well, anytime you're in the neighborhood, please come and play them.
Oh man.
Well,
you know what? I wanted to get back there, but it didn't happen this past fall for various reasons. But and you know, we wanted to drive back there. We were really looking forward to doing it, and then you know things happened, and things got hairy, and they've been hairy. Let's face it. But yeah, for whatever reason. But it would be nice to sort of still do that when the weather breaks and just kind of make a little cross country trip out of it, because you know I still have family back there, so I would love to see you and to see them and just to see friends that I haven't seen in so long. So
that would be so great. Yeah,
please just have some spare ribs ready for me and a salad, and no.
I'll have whatever you want ready. It'll all be ready for you. You know that.
Cup of coffee. How about that?
Absolutely. I have to read you Eddie Taduri, who we were just talking about the other day.
Yes.
Our dear friend. He couldn't make it to watch this live today, but I just want to read to you what he said. Hi, John. Sorry I'll miss this, but please give Vinnie my best. We played together recently at our annual trap benefit, and it was magic, which you were just talking about. And he said, he's always been there for me and the program. When people think of Vinnie, they think drums, and rightfully so, but I think of a lifelong friendship, kindness, and compassion. Isn't that beautiful?
Eddie is a saint. Yeah, it is beautiful. He's Saint Eddie, and what he's doing is doing God's work, man. This guy found a calling that's bigger than him, you know, and all of us. And I have to tell you that what he's doing with those children and with these people is just miraculous. I mean, you know, initially he was also working with people, if my memory, which is ironic that I'm saying this now, is correct, that he was also working with people, with adults that had Alzheimer's and those kinds of issues, and was seeing great results. But the focus actually ended up for reasons that Eddie could explain much better than I, to kids with Williams syndrome. And, you know, they're just, all I can say is Eddie, you know, doing this is, I mean, if anybody's going to have the gates of heaven wide open, it will be for him, you know?
Yeah.
If karma will have a pot of gold, it will be for him, for doing that, you know? And but he's doing it selflessly as one should, you know, he's not doing it for a reward. But the thing is that those kids, they, to me, what I've learned from doing that and just being around them, as it hit me, is that they are our teachers, because they're all love. Yeah. They don't have the hate. Their filter for hate is gone, or whatever that thing is. It's not there. They don't know. They teach us how to love and how to live. So they're like, God put them there to be our teachers. So it's like, you know, rather than looking at them as a sort of, as people with disabilities that, you know, to me, they're sort of, that's why we as a species, we do this, we interact, we love, they teach us, we help them, and they help us. Yeah. It's a symbiotic relationship, you know, that's very valuable. So, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, in the words of the fabled so-called words of Einstein, God doesn't make mistakes, you know? So, you know, I don't want to misquote anybody here, but you get my drift. So
I do. That's well said, Vinny. Yeah. That's yeah.
And I've been there when I could, you know, there's been times where, I mean, I was there at the beginning, and then I spent a lot of years on the road and missed many of them, and just was able to come back and do this last one with him in Santa Barbara and at the theater. And the other thing too, is that it was so much fun playing. Eddie sounded great, because Eddie didn't have an ego. Nobody had an ego. Nobody was there except for the reason of playing music, having fun, and doing something for them. And that really, to me, is the spirit of how it should be captured always, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Yep. I could see that about Eddie too, just because he's so genuine. He's so human, you know?
He really is. And so it's the Rhythmic Arts project, TRAP. So I'm not sure what the website is, but is it trap.something.com or
I think it might be trap.com. Yeah. Yeah.
Or .org, but the Rhythmic Arts Project, you can find it, and it's worth looking at, to just, you know, to familiarize yourself with it and see what he does. So, I mean, it's a global thing now. So
yeah. Fantastic. Got a lot of folks watching, Vinny, a lot of great comments. Lots of questions, of course, needless to say, but we're just gonna keep moving here, because we could spend all day and all night doing that.
But, I know. And you and I have a lot of stories to tell as well. So, you know, and you know, what I was talking about before, what we started to touch upon, I'm actually drafting another podcast episode of my own about that very thing, that has to do with what you'll go through to get to where you're going to go, and what are you willing to do, you know, and that sort of thing. So, and I'm going to do a shameless plug here. So that I hope that if people feel so inclined to, please come and visit my podcast that I have called Breakfast with Vinny, which is hosted on its own website, www.breakfastwithvinny.com, and on Podbean. Actually, Podbean is the real host for it. So there's an app on the Apple Store, a Podbean app, and, you know, you could just download it and just join, and it, you know, if you follow me on Podbean, and if you sign up on sign up on the list on breakfastwithvinny.com, then I can have a good gauge of who is with me, and also if there are any other kind of announcements or developments, I could let you know. But I don't spam people. I think I've probably sent one email out the entire time, that maybe two, and the last one was a holiday email and a thank you. So I don't do that sort of thing and exploit email addresses to spam people. But I also try to keep the episodes short, because I don't want to monopolize people's time. There's so much content out there now. And, some of these things where, television shows typically are 30 minutes or an hour with a bunch of commercial breaks. And so, but now you got podcasts and I understand how conversations can develop. I get all that. They go on for 2 or 3 hours, but really, when you have so many different types of things that you would perhaps want to listen to, then how do you fit them all into a day? I mean, how can you follow, 20 podcasts and listen to every episode that comes? Like, you must have to have a podcast blaring in your ear 24 hours a day, So it's, what I'm saying? It's like,
Absolutely,
it's just, so I just keep them maybe, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Some of them are 10 minutes. The interviews may go for an hour because, okay, in all fairness, like we're just talking now, we're having a conversation and things come up and we go back and forth, but we have a limit on it. And, so there, but, but please feel free to come and visit and tell people about it if you like it. It's topical. I paint in broad strokes. I don't talk about, this is the lick of the month. I made it up. You'll never need another one.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't, don't, I just, because I think that really so much of life is principle based and sort of like, I could learn as much from, if I was astute enough, I could learn from somebody who really had their golf game together, even if I'm not a golfer, because we're dealing with economics, physics, common sense, application. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and it all kind of boils down to concept and context. That's where it begins and ends. Everything flows from that. So, I mean, once, and I probably said this before somewhere else, I'm sure, because, I'm an old man now and I repeat myself. So why didn't I just say that, Johnny? No, I just,
Oh, that's me. All the way.
Yeah. Boomer. Oh, I'm so offended. Not. So, is that the best you got? Oh, gosh. Boomer. Ooh, I got him there. Yeah. Ooh, ouch. Okay, I'll stop. So, ouch. So, but I'm sorry, I got totally off base because I'm cracking myself up.
No, you started to say you've said this before.
Well, I don't know. See what I mean? I got dementia now. So. I do tend to repeat myself, but no, it's like, I probably have said this a million times, but like I remember one time I went over to a friend of mine's house for a rehearsal, and that's years ago. And so he's a great singer-songwriter, pianist. And so walked into the house and there was a guy sitting on a piano bench next to a woman who was playing piano, and he was just very intently sitting there staring forward and listening and watching. And so I said, oh, let's go into the other room. I don't want to bother these people. It looks like he's giving a piano lesson. Oh no, it's fine. It's okay. I said, wow, this looks pretty intense. Who is he? He told me about the guy. And the guy was apparently a really sought after teacher that, very accomplished, and some renowned pianists and violinists studied with. He didn't play either instrument.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Wow.
He just. But he was that good of a guide who could, intuit, and he you know what I mean? He just knew. It's like, and a lot of things happen like this tangentially, or with this kind of lateral approach, or lateral thinking, or lateral trajectory, whereby, that's one example. A friend of mine was telling me about someone else he knew. There was an Israeli pianist, and his teacher was a mathematician. Or, there's what's another example? It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, well, You get the
That's
picture.
fascinating. Yeah, I do,
Yeah.
Vinny. And that fascinates me because
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just
heard that.
remembered it.
No, that's okay.
If I may interject, here's another one. So it is valuable to be an expert. But the thing is that there are also people who are experts who may even have degrees that they're not imaginative, or they don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen people who've had degrees that, they couldn't, you hear what their composition degrees and it sounded horrible. And then other people who were like, well, I'm struggling here, but they write a song and it makes you weep, and it's the greatest thing you've ever heard. So what does it all mean? So there was a guy years ago on and there was an old episode of 60 Minutes. You can still probably see this I'm sure it's on YouTube. Anyway, it's about this guy called John Canzius, Kanzius. And apparently the story goes is that he was suffering from some kind of cancer himself. He went to a children's cancer ward or leukemia ward, and was so touched by what he saw that he went back home and went through his wife's pots and pans and things and whatever they had around the house, and came up with this apparatus called the Canzius machine. It was a prototype. And what he did was he was a radio operator, I think, or something in that capacity in the Navy, I think, and in a branch of the armed forces. Okay. He worked in radio communications or something like that. So he wasn't a doctor. He wasn't, so he puts this machine together. And apparently, I mean, I saw this where the interviewer he had it so that there was some kind of apparatus. There were two of them placed a distance apart. What he did was he hung a hot dog on a string with something stuck in the hot dog, like a little pebble or whatever it was. And he aimed radio waves at that, which destroyed that target area only and left the rest of the hot dog intact, uncooked. So the interviewer saw this and was astounded by it. So she said, can I walk between these two posts of apparatus, machinery, or whatever it is? Will it hurt me? He goes, certainly. It's just radio waves. I mean, this is a real thing. This is not some baloney tinfoil hat crap. This is really happened, right? So this guy, and I mean, I followed this for years. I mean, there was a website where, they had the patent on it and they were waiting for FDA approval for years. Okay. And I saw another interview with someone that was a oncologist. This is the greatest thing, the biggest breakthrough in, we can envision a time where we put nanoparticles through the entire body, and this thing only targets where the nanoparticles go and leaves everything else alone. This is brilliant. You can guess what happened next. A bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
Right. They waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. That's a good song there. And while the FDA dragged their feet and, nothing happened. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, the next thing I knew, the patent had been sold to someone else. And then a different kind of version of the machine emerged, I think. But it just goes to show you how the whole thing just kind of fizzled out. But the main point of it all is that the guy, he was a radio operator.
Yeah.
He wasn't. Right. He wasn't an oncologist, but he thought laterally, and he came up. I mean, how many people can you imagine?
Wow.
I'm sure there are kids who in 8th grade science classes who tried to figure out. I've already figured out the most efficient way to get rid of microplastics. I'll bet you there are, and in fact, I think I remember reading something about this. So you're getting my overriding point that I'm trying to make, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to be. Yeah. You don't have to be.
Like kids playing in buckets on the street, and they're
Yeah.
I mean, you either got something to say or you don't. It's that simple, And as much as I appreciate mankind's capacity for intellect and all that sort of stuff. To me, it's if you ain't got heart with it, you ain't got nothing. I'll take heart over that. I'd rather hang out with people who, have one tooth in the front that will give me that, one of their last pieces of bread than some smug intelligentsia person telling, Well, you don't know what you're talking about here. I take issue with that. That's sort
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
I just
Absolutely. Yep.
ugh,
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
puts a bad taste in my mouth. Unlike this cough drop, which was really, really good. So
They look good.
yeah,
I'm a little jealous of those cough drops. I'm drinking water trying to stay.
I don't know where my wife got them, but I gotta ask her. They're so good.
And
They're like licorice. They're called Jakeman's. Jakeman's cough drops.
Jake,
Really good.
okay. And Mim is watching this. You said she's watching us right now.
Well, I hope she is. Yeah, I
Oh,
think
good,
so.
good, good,
I
good.
told her it would be on Facebook, so
Yeah.
and that's the one social media platform I know nothing about. I don't know how to operate it. I have an administrator that works on my
Yeah.
page for me, so I know how to use Twitter and Instagram. That's about it. So
You're not missing anything, Vinny. I mean, this is great that we're reaching all these folks right now, but
yeah,
it's with all due respect to everybody watching. What I meant was just, it definitely has its ups and downs. But talking
yeah.
about, I want to just jump backwards for 10 seconds because you
Back, baby.
told me something, jump back, baby, something that I thought was funny the other day. When you while you were still here in Boston and you were at Berklee, and your classmate Kenwood Denard, the great Kenwood Denard, who's still
Yes.
here. Yep, still he's teaching at
Great.
Berklee, as we know,
Bravo.
Woody, and that you guys were at a Bernard Purdy clinic at my old EU Wurlitzer place of work.
Yeah.
And both you guys got up and played during the clinic as Berklee students.
We did.
Yeah.
And Bernard asked us to come up and we went up and played. And I would normally not do something like that unless I was asked. And sometimes I would balk. But this time I did. And so did Kenwood. And Kenwood and I used to hang out and practice together. I think we had the same dormitory floor. So we went to school together, and there was a lot of people going to school at that time. I think at the schools, any university or college usually has a gilded age or several of them, where there are some class years where there's just a bunch of luminaries that emerge at one time, and I think the mid-70s was one of those times that I was lucky enough to be at that time. Like, I mean, there was myself and Steve Smith were there, and John Robinson and Kenwood, Mike Stern, a whole bunch of people, the late Chuck Loeb, may he rest in peace. So many, great, that went on to do great things. And Pat Metheny was even teaching there at the time still.
Wow.
And Gary Burton was there, and Steve Swallow, and have ensembles with these people. And it was a great time to be there, and the people that I networked with and met while I was there, and just sort of got to meet and play with, and that whole immersive social experience of interacting with other musicians was the kind of, I don't know, the sort of nexus of it. It really was the thing that made it for me, just because you could when you communicate with people, you find out a lot about yourself that's not just theoretical.
And I was just going to say how cool that when you moved to LA, a few years later, I know Tim Landers and Neil Steubenhaus were in that during that time.
That's right.
Well.
And Tim too. And Neil, I think Neil was even teaching there, and wow, Tim was there.
Yeah.
They were, all these people. There was Philippe Sace. He was there at that time.
All these great musicians that you
it was amazing. And they went on to do great things. So I mean, you contrast that with another time. He's talking about, like, Bernard asked us to come up and play, so, which normally I wouldn't do that, but he did ask me to do that another time when I was on the road, and he came to a gig that I was at, and I think it was at the Spectrum in Oslo, and I looked over by the sound, the monitor booth, and I saw this guy standing there, and I'm thinking, well, it looks like Bernard Purdy. What's he doing here? So the gig ends, and he's still standing there, and I'm walking off the stage. I go past him, and I said, Bernard, what are you doing? He goes, yeah, I got a clinic over at this club, and I knew where it was, right? I said, okay, I'll come over. So I go over there, and he at that time, Slingerland made a brief comeback, right? That was during that time.
Yeah.
And and so I go there, and nobody's asking him anything. I'm sitting in the audience, and I felt so bad, right? I'm like, is it a language barrier? What is it, And then I, raised my hand and asked him something and broke the ice. And so he says, come on up on stage and play. And I'm thinking, oh Lord, I didn't want this, right? So I ended up, trying to comp for him, or I was just sort of trying to stay out of it, but but it happened once again, and God, I mean, the other thing too is that for me, it's like the guy's pocket is so amazing that it's like when Steve and Frosty and I went to take a lesson, right? Oh, we're gonna go to New York and take lessons from Bernard. So we go to New York. I took one lesson, right? At the end of the lesson, he goes, I want you guys to come back next week and write an essay on what you learned. So we're standing on the street in New York after we left the lesson, and I said to Steve and Frosty, I said, I'm not coming back. He's like, why? I said, I got everything I needed. You know why? Because during the lesson, at one point, he goes, I want all three of you guys to sit down and play a groove. We did what we thought was a groove. Mm-hmm. He sat down, and I was right behind him and started playing a groove. And let me tell you, man, it was like a hammer hit me over the head. I just thought, you can't teach this, man. You either get it or you don't. This guy is so funky. So I'm thinking, I get it, So that was it. That was like another epiphany, moment for me because of Bernard, right? And so that was the end of that, So I didn't go back because I that's the reason,
Yeah.
I mean, it just so happened in one fell swoop, right? And so that's just kind of goes along with the whole thing of, well, they ask you to sit in, but there've been other times where I just wouldn't do it, like the late great Kenny Kirkland, and we went to, I can't remember where it was in London. It was a club in London once, and we were there on the road together, and Kenny and we went there because this group called E70 was playing. Amazing Cuban group, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows E70, right? Chucho, come on. So Chucho was there, and so they were like, they were looking for us to come up and sit in, and I went, oh no, I can't. I don't want to do this. And so I tried to hide. So we were trying to hide in the men's room and went downstairs, and there was a coat room there, and then eventually tried to snake up in the audience, and the guy sees us, and he sees me, and he grabs me, and next thing you know, we're on the stage. Like, they were not going to stop until we sat in. And I just went, oh no, and at that time we were, we had a few of these, we imbibed a bit, shall we say, back in those days. So by the time we got there, we were, we were kind of happy. So
it was a night off, and
so we went there, and now we're thrust in, in the frying pan, feeling kind of happy but scared, and so and then he counts it off, and it's like one, and we're like, thanks,
oh man,
nice. So it was like, well, what do you do? Sink or swim. So
yeah,
but so I would avoid it at all costs, and
I'll bet
and I think that that the spirit of those guys was just like, oh yeah, man, you guys are cool, we love you, come on up here. They wasn't like they were trying to challenge us. I think they just got excited, and that's an honor for me,
yeah,
because they're amazing. So
that's great. That is great. Yeah. Great. I mean,
and then I wrote.
I was going to say, I've known you forever, and some of these stories I've never heard are just outstanding. They're just,
well, there goes that book idea out the window.
No, it won't go out the window. No, there's plenty more. I promise. We won't dig.
I'll have 3 pages left. I'm telling you, I'm jockeying for a show. You can see I'm voling for a show.
I was talking about your show before you came on, so I'm glad you promoted it as well.
I'm saying
I know,
I'm jockeying for a show. Hey, it's Vinnie Day. How are you?
Actually, next Saturday, folks, really is Vinnie Day.
Whoa,
February the 5th.
Is it coming up?
It's coming up a week from today.
Holy cow! I forgot about that. It's a week away.
A week away. And I'll tell
Yikes.
everybody who doesn't know this that you share the same birthday with our dear friend, the great Hal Blaine. And I remember, I just want to tell this story. 3 years ago, I was fortunate to be invited to Hal's 90th birthday party at the Baked Potato. You were out of town, Vinny, and I know you were disappointed you couldn't be there. And you you texted me a beautiful voice message that I was able to play to Hal before it got crazy. I put it up, and he just sat there smiling, and he said, "Oh, please tell him I said thank you. That's just beautiful." So that was so beautiful that you remembered that it was, well, I guess when you share the same birthday, it's easy to remember, but that was really nice that you did that. It was a beautiful gesture.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the fact that I shared a birthday with him was huge to me. I mean, he's just iconic, legendary, incomparable Hal Blaine. I mean, he's someone that I grew up listening to and
Yeah.
and still do, and just he used to email me occasionally and say happy birthday, or we would send emails back and forth and
Wow.
wish each other happy birthday. Yeah. So
That's cool.
I try to keep track of people that I share birthdays with, and people who have birthdays close to mine. I mean, Simon's is on the 6th, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. The day after.
Yeah. So we have to oftentimes remind ourselves to, and I'm not really great with birthdays. I have to sort of put them in my contact thing so it shows up because, I mean, I'm just horrible with birthdays. I don't know what it is. I mean, it took me years to even remember my own mother's birthday because it fell so close to Thanksgiving, and it was like the 25th, and I couldn't remember 24, 25. I don't know why I couldn't remember, but eventually I did. So, I mean, it's not like I missed them, but if I had to remember, but it's interesting. Speaking of that, it's like I remember so many things, like my childhood phone number, and back then I could remember hundreds of phone numbers, Now, I mean, and it's not just an age-related thing. I think it's just being used to sort of having everything in the phone and stuff, So
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, and if it gets wiped, you panic, because everything's in the phone. So
yeah, I was funny. I was not long ago, I was texting with a buddy of mine, childhood, first grade buddy of mine that I'm still in touch with. And we were remembering each other's phone numbers, just like you said, and other friends of ours. I said, it wasn't Dennis's number, this and blah, but I couldn't, I don't even know if I know Kelly's number, cell number. I mean, I think I do, but but it's one of those things where if I think too hard about it, I go, no, maybe that's not it, But,
right.
Right.
No,
but it's
crazy.
It's so talking about childhood though, I know John Bonham, like just talking about like your heroes coming up as a drummer. Ringo was a big influence though, kind of in the beginning, right?
Huge. In
Huge,
fact,
yeah.
I saw him when I was very, very young on the Ed Sullivan Show with the Beatles, and I wanted a drum set just like his, and nobody had them in stock. Because apparently, once that happened, we couldn't make them fast enough. So there was a local music store. I ended up getting this Rogers kit that was this sort of onyx tiger, I don't know, psychedelic red sort of, and they were great drums. And in fact, I think they were those drums at that time, pre-CBS, Rogers we had Jasper shells, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think you are correct. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were really good. They were really good drums, and the Swivel-matic, I think it was, and power tones and Dynasonic. I had a power tone snare, but yeah, they were great, and that's how that happened. But Ringo was definitely one of my very, very early. I mean, after starting to pay attention to drummers and seeing them visually, right? Ringo was probably maybe the first. And then people came up, and it was like Britpop and Motown and soul was kind of, really what I was influenced by in those early days, like listening to all the Motown drummers and the soul drummers, and and the rock and roll stuff. Like, I mean, the Beatles and the Stones and whoever else, the Zombies,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Absolutely. Yeah.
Argent, Dave Clark 5, I mean, all
Yeah.
these people, and then eventually, as I started learning more, I got exposed to jazz, and I say that, I mean, I don't mean to say that tongue in cheek, but I got exposed to big band jazz, and back where I grew up in southwestern Pennsylvania, organ groups were really big,
Mm.
where it was like organ players, and it'd be like maybe organ player, drummer, and a tenor player. It would be that kind of a situation, and then I got exposed to Miles, and
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
changed everything. So it
Yeah.
definitely didn't kind of, it definitely changed everything, and so did Tony. Um, but I was able to see all these people when I was still a kid in junior high school. Like
Right.
the Don Ellis Big Band, playing Bulgarian Bulge.
Wow.
I'm just this kid in like seventh, eighth grade, and I'm seeing this stuff, and it's all coming at me. And this is nothing I've said before. It was like a tsunami of seminal music that was being born, and from infusion and jazz rock is what it was first, before it was named fusion, and then fusion became something else, and smooth jazz was born. But before all of that, it was all these kinds of things were coming, and it was all really kind of new. I mean, everything from Mahavishnu, Weather Report, Tower of Power, Don Ellis Big Band, right? And a million other Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, but then the rock groups, I mean, yes, King Crimson,
Yeah.
Emerson, Lake
Yeah.
and Palmer, that contingency, as well as Led Zeppelin. I mean, I saw Zeppelin. I saw a lot of those bands live, and the horn bands, Blood, Sweat, and Tears in Chicago, and so on and so on and so on, and Stevie Wonder, and all of this stuff, and Miles and Hendrix, and
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Well,
So
that's
people
yeah.
people
Yep.
will argue and say, "Oh, there was a lot of crap back then too," But yeah, I mean, there's always been crap as long as the
Yeah.
things could be commercialized. But I would argue that the ratio of it. I mean, I
Oh,
remember just putting on AM radio and hearing Miles in San Francisco. I had a car, rented a car once, and just I can. Yes, I know that a lot of jazz stations, as far back as I can remember as well, would wait till after hours before they put on, Sun Ra, or, Interstellar Space, or any of this stuff, or Train or anything. And before that, it was like, well, let's just keep it nice and easy, everybody. But there was still a plethora of variety, and qualitatively, it had its own kind of originality and integrity that still holds, and I think a lot of it also is because there was a like a sort of an air of more of an air of kind of permanence, like you were documenting something.
hmm.
You know what I mean? Versus like everything is everywhere now, which it's great to have that. And some people will say, well, it's up to you to find it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. But sometimes it's like looking through this miasma of just, it's like, it's just this tidal wave of stuff. And sometimes you just go, you know what? No,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't just no, because it just becomes harder and harder to, you're stumbling across things then, I
Yeah.
think so. And, I just think that, yeah, there's this whole thing of, I, recording was more of a rarefied air, and with all the kind of things that we can do now, it's you could, I think it's good to be able to reflect on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I'm
I
saying.
think I think what you just said though, Vinny, is so key, and I so agree with the fact that it was, the music was documented, and
Yeah,
I know I sound like I'm you know get off my lawn, but I
yeah,
just feel like so little music right now is going to be documented the way that, and I would also, to your point, say that if the time period you're talking about when you were like junior high school, you're talking like sort of late 60s, right? Maybe late 60s, early 70s.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah. I
exactly. Late '60s, early '70s. Yeah,
yeah, I think we'd both be hard pressed to really come up with some crap music. I mean, what people might have thought of as crap might have been some of the pop music that was, that's
But even then, I mean, I could turn on the radio, there would just be hit after hit after hit. And there was a
yeah,
lot of really good stuff. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
it wasn't like the crap to good music ratio was a lot different, I think, you know.
I totally, the good music far, far, far outweighed it, without a doubt.
And even the corporate machinery, even though it was firmly in place, I don't think that it was completely, as I mean, and this may have been in the early days of payola or maybe just before, who knows? But I just don't think that it was exerting as much direct power as it does now. I mean, the media is out of control. The media is it's just like its own government now. You know what I mean? So it's weird.
Yep.
It's just weird. It's like they're exerting their own kinds of rules, circumventing, the law of the land. It's just bizarre to me, but there was a lot of great stuff. And I'm really, really happy that I saw it on the ground floor. It was just,
Absolutely.
Great.
No, I'm a little younger, but I agree. I say that all the time, that we grew up at a time when like all these greats were walking the earth. You know what I mean? Like we got to hear it while it was being made, all that music, and
there was a lot that I missed even. I mean, I would hear it like, that's why I would love to hear a story. I would, ask people like Herbie, all these stories, because then there was that, like, wow, you saw Bill Evans, you saw Train. What was that like? You know what I mean? Like I missed Hendrix, I missed Train. So there's some stuff that I missed that, boy, I can only imagine, right? So.
Yeah, but you got to see a lot. I mean, you got to see Led Zeppelin. You got to see a lot of great music. So jumping, I was going to just jump back, baby, to when you moved to LA in '78.
Yeah.
How quickly did you start to? I don't want to say start to work, but did you audition for Frank in '78, or was that '79? Like Joe's Garage record.
I want to say, I roughed it for about 3 or 4 months pretty badly. Yeah. And then I auditioned for him, and I recall the summer of '78 starting to rehearse.
That's what I thought.
So it's like February, March, April, May, June, it's like, it was there was at least a good 4 months where it was kind of rough, bro. I'm talking about sleeping in my car that I bought for $99, and then, getting woken up by police saying you can't, I would find these little streets to pull over that were dark, and I'd just try to go to sleep in this car,
oh, man.
And then I'd get woken up with a flashlight. I'm like, okay, come on, man. Where do I have to go to sleep here? And just things like that. Yeah. So this is not a sob story, because I was very, very lucky.
But this is real life. Yeah,
it's real life. It's just things that happen. And, there's people a lot worse. I got nothing to complain about. We've got a homeless problem in LA now that's out of control. And probably a lot of it has to do with mental illness. So it's like, fix that, help these people. And many of them don't want to be helped. They just, you got to approach with caution. But, I mean, there's a lot of people that have it a lot worse, but I got a little taste of what it's like to, not have a gig and crash around and just, eat once a day, so, where it's just like, okay, I'm going to get a Happy Meal now. That's it. I need the other $5 for gas, so. So it, I roughed it for about, I don't know, 4 months or something. And then I heard about this, I was crashing with people, and I heard about the audition, and luck favored me.
And as far as the audition, did you have to submit something to get to that point where Frank?
No, I just happened to pick up the phone at this place I was crashing at, because I got a phone number from Tom Fowler for the management. I called them up, and they're like, "Go away, kid." And then, one day I happened to be there and this is before answering machines. That's how old I am. Okay. So the phone rang, and I just happened to be there, and I picked it up. They said, real deadpan, "Hello, is this so-and-so?" Yeah. "Mr. Zappa will hear you Tuesday night, Culver City Studios, 7 p.m. Click." Or it was like that. So I showed up, and it was like a cattle call. I mean, literally a big movie studio. And there's like probably 3 lines 100 deep, and yeah, and that's what it was like. And I walked up there, and finally I got towards the end of front of the line, and I was just like, here I go, sink or swim. And just, you went through the laundry list with him, and I got hired. So yeah.
You're being way too humble, because it's a classic legendary story. You had to play on Terry's kit, right? His Rototom kit?
Yeah. That's double bass Gretsch kit, black kit. And I had never played double bass before. So I was like, whoa, and I did, but it was great. I was like, oh, Gretsch drums. Yeah. So, they're Gretsch. Yeah. So, yeah. And then the laundry list happened, and it's like, and yeah. So it was really very, very grueling and meticulous audition, where it was all these categorical things he wanted to make sure that they could be fulfilled, and whether or not he was looking for all of them or a high percentage of them to be filled, I don't know, but I must have ticked all the boxes. So, that's lucky me. So, yeah.
I think you did, Vinny. I think you did. There's
yeah. And so, and the gear thing too is like, and I ended up where I am now because we were talking about the drummers that influenced me. And then, I ended up, after those Rogers drums, I had this like see-through pearl kit that I ended up taking to Boston with me. And then it was like, no, I got to get these Gretsch drums. And I saved up and went and bought those drums from Frank Ippolito. May he rest in peace. Right.
Yeah.
You remember Pro Percussion Center?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that was a yellow Gretsch kit.
Yep. That I still have to this day. So
yeah.
So that was those. Yeah, man. And going through all these iterations of gear, I don't know if you want to get into that here a little bit or not, or if this is.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just the iterations of gear. And so I ended up where I am now. And so as I say, I'm just very, like, I play what I want to play, and what works for me. So, and what I love. And it just so happens that choosing those drums because my heroes play them that wasn't the only criteria, it was because they sounded great and they feel great to play, and so all the stuff that I use is for that reason, and I've got my whole pedal thing with DW, and like many of us do, for good reason. And the hardware thing is together, and I'm playing the Peisty cymbals now, which I love. And I've got a battery of different snare drums. And so the last thing left is the sticks that I've been sort of in free fall over the last few years, but that's coming. That's coming soon. So that's all I can say. It's on its way.
All right. Yeah. Good. Someone asked that
Yeah.
question, and they've said, hey, what's Vinny using for sticks? And I wasn't even going to go there, but I guess we'll wait and see. We're going to wait and see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, when I saw you play last a couple of years ago, you were in town with Jeff Beck, and I brought my brother Chris, to see you. I don't know if you remember, it was a really hot summer night, and you absolutely killed it. And you were trying some sticks, and I won't say what, but I remember you saying to me, Johnny, did it sound like typical Vinny? You said, did it seem like I had some different sticks up there? I said, Vinny, you sounded like you sounded amazing. No, but you were, I know you were funny. You were putting them through the paces. So
yeah, because they're just on the search and stuff, and you get used to something, and sometimes it's hard. It's difficult, it's amazing what gets ingrained in your memory. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I went through the same thing with pedals, it's like 5,000s or 9,000s. And you'd be amazed that there's been several of my friends have told me the same thing. And I was like, well, yeah, I went through that too. I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from the fact that I came from pedals that had straps.
Yes.
And I got so used to that kind of feedback, that exact kind of feedback. Even if the straps broke, I didn't care. I just took a drum key, took the strap off, put a new one on, and it just had a certain kind of feel. And it just took forever to get used to anything else. Like the chain had to be just right, and the sort of, the adjustment had to be just right, just so you could get the right amount of resistance for a nanosecond before the pedal actually went, and how much spring back would it be, and all of that stuff. And it's amazing what you can get used to, that your body just hangs on to. I mean, to me anyway, and I think a lot of other people have said the same thing,
So are you using 5,000s?
Now it's 9,000s.
9,000s. Okay.
Yeah,
And with a strap or with a chain?
No, they're with this chain, because the nylon strap thing was like, it was too light for me, so.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I tried those 9,000s, and they, for my weak foot, I just couldn't. I was so used to the feeling of an old Gretsch / old 5,000 pedal.
Those are great.
Yeah.
Floating action.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of those.
Great pedal.
Yeah. If you want one, I'll send you one.
Oh, you know what? I found one. Send you one. Okay, I'll take it. Yeah. Oh, I accept it with gratitude. Good. I found one, but it's not completely working, and I found it somewhere for like $30 or something. But I have it here at the house, and I thought, well, maybe I'll see if Chris Ewer will fix it for me, and I haven't gotten around to it,
Oh,
but I love that. I was like, oh, I would love to have one of those, man. So thank you.
You got it, Vinny. Hold it empty. I know we're getting on here, and I was just gonna. We'll wrap it up in a minute. I just wanted to talk quickly about, after you got the gig with Frank, was that more or less a turning point that really kind of, from that point on, it really opened a lot of doors?
It did, because people had an idea, rightfully so, that, wow, if you're playing with Frank Zappa's band, you have to be a pretty damn good musician, because there were, look at the people that had come out of there, So, and the criteria, and it's, but what happened was that I was on the road most of the time, and then when I'd come back in town for brief intervals, I wasn't like, I wanted to do. Nobody really knew how I was, and I wasn't doing any recording, and I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I wanted to do was be a studio musician for several reasons. Not the least of which is I'd rather be heard than seen. That's just me. I just want to play the music. I don't care. Like if I looked like like Shrek, who cares? You know what I mean? It's like I don't care. I don't want cameras on me all the time. Like, wee, look. I didn't care about any of that. In fact, I still think it's kind of like, really, why? Why do you have to? Just like if you read a book, you're using your imagination, or if you just listen to a record, you're using your imagination. Why does everything have to be a movie? That's just me, but whatever. Call me old fashioned, call me an old fart, whatever. But I think, yes, I wanted to record, and I wanted to document music, and it was because being a studio musician, you was like, you didn't know what you were going to be involved in. And since I liked all kinds of music, I thought, great, man, this is great. And I was listening to people that influenced me that were doing just that, like Steve Gadd and Harvey Mason, they were playing on, like, Harvey played on Headhunters, but he played on Brothers Johnson too. And he played on George Benson, Reason. And, and Gadd played on like The Hustle, which was really early, like beginning of the disco era. But then he did Steps Ahead, and then he did the Leprechaun. You know what I'm saying? Right. And right. So and Billy used to do all these CTI records, and so this whole thing of being a studio musician was like, wow, you're recording, and you got to get it right, and you're documenting it forever. There's that thing again. There's that thing that we were talking about earlier, where you're documenting, this means something, because this is how it's going to sound for all time. Yeah. It wasn't like, we'll take the masters and remix them and then get rid of the drums. And, we got this app now that'll get rid of the vocals, and,
no,
they will auto-tune it, and we place it. And I got an idea, I'll do it too, and everybody's got a big idea, and then, it turns into 2,000 different things. It wasn't like that. It was like, you had to get it right, and it was a performance top to bottom, and things would be changed because now you're in the second verse, and at this time the story changes, so you're going to play it a little different. Whoops, how about that? Wow, what a concept. You're actually following a story, and so there's all those things, and that's what I wanted to do, but I had to leave in order to have that happen, because there wasn't enough time in between tours. I couldn't. So what happened was, my last concert that I did with him was December 1980 at the Santa Monica Civic. And so in 81, we were starting to rehearse for another tour. And I remember it was in between bass players, and he was trying people out. And then I got an offer to do 2 records at the same time. Gino Vanelli, Nightwalker, and this group called Pages. So what happened was, and I thought, this is great. This will give me a chance to do recording, and maybe, who knows. And it was like a month of employment. So I went to Frank and I said, Frank, I really want to do this, and I'm really wanting to, I explained the whole thing, and he was totally understanding about it. He gave me his blessing. He was wonderful. So that's what I ended up doing. And we were doing like driving from the studio called Smoke Tree during the day in Chatsworth, I think it was, working with Gino Vanelli from like noon to 6. And then we'd go all the way across town to a place I think it was in the city of San Fernando, called Dawnbreaker at the time. It was Seals and Crofts' studio, to work on Pages from like 6 to midnight. This went on for weeks, maybe a month, it was back-to-back sessions. I mean, yeah. So that was, and then I stayed home, and then I met people, and somebody recommended me for something like, to Tom Scott, and, and then I got recommended for a TV show, and, it cut little by little, but then it was enough where I saw that I could work. And see, you have to remember, back then there was the A team, B team, C team, D team, and E team. Everybody was working, turning down work, and people, musicians who were playing in clubs were buying houses. I mean, I'm serious.
I've heard that. Yeah. I know. I've heard. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
When you think about it now, like what happened, right? The economy, and union guys used to come into clubs and make sure that you had your union card, or that performing rights organizations would make sure that the clubs, all that kind of stuff, and was being enforced, and it was just different economy.
I was going to say, and that's an entirely different conversation we could have maybe another time, but
we could go on and on, man. Definitely.
I know. I just think about how prolific your resume, or your repertoire, or whatever you want to call it, your recording
curriculum vitae.
Yes. and
pedigree.
Pedigree, yes.
Like a dog.
No, I mean, just the 80s, you just exploded with so much recording, and I was just thinking, and before we wrap up, I got to throw this story in here because it involves my dad. But when you were doing the Joan Rivers show in the 80s, I used to talk about you, and I was living in LA, and we had met a couple of times when I was at DW and Simmons, but you did a clinic at Pro Drum Shop in 1987, I want to say the summertime, and Tim Landers played bass with you. You guys played together at the old Union Hall across the street there. My dad was in town, came with me to the clinic, and he was so excited because Joan Rivers' drummer was doing a clinic. But
that's classic.
It's classic. My dad, rest his soul, we had watched you on TV the night before on Friday night.
Oh man.
And I said,
so good.
Yeah, that's the guy we're going to see tomorrow. So
no.
he was, and you met him briefly at Pro Drum afterward, when Stan would have everybody back at the shop afterward or something. And you were really nice, and you said hello, but he was just like, wow, he's such a nice guy, and wow, what a drummer. I said, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, he does more than Joan Rivers.
Wow, that is so funny. Oh man, God bless him, man. That was so funny. It went on to become Arsenio after a while, because he was like started doing more and more of the show, and I was still in there at that time, and then I left, and so then Arsenio got his own show, and then there were a bunch of other shows that emerged from that. And it was interesting because just from that one show, I was starting to get called. Anytime a new show would come on, I would get called. I was like TV man, right? But what happened was, like, on the Joan Rivers thing, I was able to sub it out because I was at that time I was starting to get more and more session work, and it just happened during a time of the day where it was like I was having to turn down sessions, and I thought, no, I don't want to do this. This is there has to be. So
I could see
part
that.
of it.
Yeah, no, that's great, Vinny. Thank you so much for doing this. This is what an honor.
Oh no, it's a pleasure, man. You're very, very easy to talk to, and you make it easy for me to just rattle on and put a quarter in me. I just go.
We could go all day, but again, everybody watching, don't forget to subscribe to Vinny's podcast, Breakfast with Vinny. And in fact, Vinny, I searched it. I think I went onto my Apple Podcast little app and searched it, and it came right up. So I mean, it's easy to find. You're easy. People just need to search it.
Good. Well, it's on Apple, and it's on Spotify, and its own website, and Podbean. So, the thing is I encourage people to sign up on the website and Podbean, because, I don't mind Apple and all that, but it's easy. It's too hard for me to track, and engage my listeners, when it's spread all over the place. Like, for example, I never sent my RSS feed to Google yet, but it's there. And I'm thinking, how did that happen? So the way that information just gets spread out is, I'm starting to feel like it's a little out of control now. So it helps me to be able to see who's doing what. So,
okay, that's good to know. When we're done, I'm going to do that. I'm going to sign up directly on the website so that you can, you can track it. Cause I had the same thing. I've seen that too, where I got into this, ass backwards, to be honest with you. And I think I sent the feed to Apple and Spotify, but it's in a bunch of different platforms, like you said, and I don't know how it got there, but it just did. So,
right. It's crazy. Because usually as a podcaster in your dashboard, you have the ability to decide where you want to send it. And mine were specifically checked, and I hadn't gone to Google yet, but it was there. So ghost in the machine. Anyway,
hold them thing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching today. A big hand for my old buddy, the great Vinnie Colaiuta. Thank you, Vinny.
All right, Johnny. Thank you so much for having me on. It was always a pleasure talking to you. Always.
Likewise, buddy. Love you, brother. Hey, hang on just 1 sec. I'm going to end the stream, and then we'll say goodbye. But
okay.
Thanks.